Here we have an Asus laptop that came in for no power. The laptop does not power on, and the model number on this laptop, we already took it apart. Let's try to fix this as quick as possible because I have 6 million things to do today. Model number is GL704G. We already disassembled the board. And the board looks something like this. Now, Big Boss already tested the laptop before he disassembled the board. And usually I tell him to check for the charger. If the charger is going into protection mode when it's plugged in, that's a good indication that we have a problem or is short on the MOSFET. But he said the charger is not going into protection mode. The charger is plugged here. And what I'm interested in are those MOSFETs that we see in this area here. Let's go ahead and measure. Let's put the meter in diode mode. And we're going to start randomly measuring the MOSFETs that we see here. .5 voltage drop. 2 voltage drop, and the gate is OL. Okay. 2 voltage drop, gate is OL, which is good. And we have a short here. Voltage injection tool to the rescue. We're gonna connect black probe to one of the screw holes, and we're gonna inject 1 volt at the MOSFET and monitor the board under a thermal cam and see what gets hot. We're gonna inject 1 volt right here, and the board is drawing 1.7 amps. 1.7 amps. We see the GPU is getting hot. Look at that center chip. Let's do this one more time. There's a heat spot on the bottom left. Right over here. One more time. The heat spot is coming from here. That tiny heat spot that was on the bottom left is coming from here. Meter in resistance mode. And what happens if we measure pin number 1 of this MOSFET? We should get something around 9K, 10K, sometimes higher. This one is 37 ohms. What about this one here? 4K. 37 ohms is very low. This one is 4,000 ohms, 4K. Usually we see 8K, 10K, 22K, but nothing in the ohms. This one is 4K. This one is 4K. And this one is 4K. This one is 4K. And only the first one is 35 ohms or 36 ohms. 37 ohms. So this MOSFET is bad. Let's remove the MOSFET and measure again and see what happens. Let's measure now, but we have to wait for the board to cool down a bit. We do not want to measure while the board is still hot because we may end up with a wrong reading. Maybe we can cool down the board with some alcohol. And let's see. What ohm reading are we going to get? We have We have 300K. The board is still hot and we do not have a MOSFET, but before we got 35 ohms. And now it's reading somewhere around 306K. So we know that that chip was the problem. And the caps on the bottom are measuring okay. I do not see a short on the caps. No short on the caps. I'm interested in this very last one that looks a bit discolored. This one here. We have 96K here and we have 0 ohms ground here. That's perfect. The only thing I see wrong here is this MOSFET. So let's go ahead and replace the MOSFET and see what happens. But before we solder it, we have to prep the pads, add some solder. Fume extractor on. And let's do it. That's enough. And let's solder that chip. And the job is done. The job is done. Now, assuming that that's the problem, the laptop should power on and everything should be good. Unless our CPU is dead, then that's a different story. So hopefully that will fix our issue and the laptop will power on. But a lot of times the CPU just does not survive. Let's hope for the best. All right, so we're gonna reassemble the motherboard and I'll be back. So it's a no-go. We reassembled the motherboard, but the laptop is still not powering on. We're not even getting the white LED when the charger is plugged in. We're not getting the amber LED, which is an indication that the battery is being charged. When we press on the power button, no signs of life, nothing at all. What I want to do is check the MOSFET that we soldered and see, is that MOSFET short into ground again? If yes, then most likely our issue, our problem is the CPU. Let's put the meter in ohms mode and measure. 0.6 ohms. The chip went bad again, and that's likely due to the CPU. I've worked on similar issues before where I spend tremendous amount of time. Same problem. The MOSFET is blowing or shorting, and the cause, most likely the CPU. One thing I want to do before we end the video is try to remove the MOSFET and see if the laptop will power on without the MOSFET. MOSFET is out. And now if we measure pin number 1 again, we get a reading of 250K. We should not have a short here anymore. Meter in diode mode. We should not have a short here anymore. And no short, 0.4 voltage drop. That MOSFET that we removed is the problem, but it's going bad again because of a likely issue from the CPU. Let's see if the laptop will power on without that MOSFET. I highly doubt it, but let's try it anyway. Let's see. And we still do not see a light. No white LED. And if we try to power it on, dead, nothing. All right, that's it. We're gonna end the video. I hope you enjoyed it, even though it's a no fix. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you have any questions, and we'll do something else in the next video.